I didn't see it.
And blammo, we are live. Alberto, hola.
Hey,
¿Qué tal?
hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien.
Muy
Awesome.
bien.
Awesome. How you
Well,
doing, Dave?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm super excited for this stream. I think we're going to be joined by Edmar here pretty soon. And Marco is not going to join us because he is off on vacation. So, Marco, if you're listening, have fun, buddy. So, so Edmar should be joining us here pretty soon. But regardless, what we're going to be talking about today is something really cool that we discovered this week, which is that, if we kind of lock down our pipeline and tighten the screws on it, we can take a big giant stage like this with a whole bunch of assets. This came from Kit Bash, and we can boil it down to basically an automated process of creating USD variants from this stage. So basically, this whole thing turns into this, and we have access to all of the buildings in there, all the variants, all the things, and that's what we're going to be showing you today. Is this process of how we did this, and we're going to be talking through the steps. I'm going to be talking through, what I had to do in Max to get to break it up and make get it into bite-sized pieces, and then pushing it out to Omniverse, where Alberto has written some magic to make this happen. So that's really cool. And Alberto, you're doing good. Yes, we already covered that. Great. So
yes. It's all good. Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. We're going from this massive to this massive scene, right? That is a library of multiple buildings, and we're gonna create an asset in USD that will hold all those buildings, as variants. So then when you bring it into your USD scene, it's just one nice building that you can say, oh, give me the gas station. No.
Yeah.
Show me the school. So then you can create we can create a scene, right? I wanted to do to show.
Absolutely. The set.
Yeah, we can create the set just with one building that we instance and change the variant.
Exactly. So and the cool part is that, you're not loading a billion terajoules of, memory to do it. You're only ever loading a single asset at a time. And that's the GPU that you're taking. So we're taking all this, baking it down into one thing, and it's going to be glorious. So let's get started. All right. So kind of the workflow here is I got my Kit Bash. I love Kit Bash. Assets are beautiful, amazing, curated 4K textures, really, really great stuff. And the thing is that I would like to use more of these assets going forward, but individually prepping all of these kits for Omniverse manually would be a laborious, painstaking process. So I don't want to do that. So what I want to do, I want to get all of this. I want to break it down into component parts so they're a lot more manageable and easy to work with. And then I want to automatically push those out to Omniverse. And while I'm doing that, I want to create a proxy, a lower resolution, a decimated version of that high-res model that we can use as a proxy inside Omniverse. So let's go through the steps here. So the very first thing I want to do, I need to get all the materials out, right? So in when we export from 3ds Max, the bindings are going to live inside of the mesh, and that's just the way it is right now. We're working on some other ways to do that down the line, but that's not right now. So right now, what I need to do is I need to export all of this into Create in order to get the all the materials. So once I do that, though, I simply see if I create a new stage here. Oh yeah, Edmar, I thought you were joining us. Edmar's not joining us. Maybe he is. We can hope. So I push those into the library, Americana, and when you export from Max. If you export in this, what's called batch mode, what it's going to do is it's going to put all of the groups inside of their own USD file, and then sorry, and then it's going to aggregate those props into one single stage. What I do is I ignore that, and I just come in and I grab, let's grab some smallish ones here, but we want buildings. Scroll, more scrolling. Okay, building. And let's go video store. So I'm going to go into my layer panel, and this is basically just how to bake all the materials into a single file. So I'm going to grab my, it's a vending machine. Bad.
Okay. So one thing, Dave, so what we're seeing here is the output of exporting that humongous 3D Studio Max scene using the default exporter.
That's right. Okay. That's right. Yep. So it's going to create a USD file for every group that is on the stage. So if we look at the stage here, I have all these, well, this is the layer panel. No, it's the groups. Okay. Yeah. So I have all these groups, and it's going to say, okay, for every group, I'm going to create a new USD file. And that's a great way to manage your stage. If that works for you, if that's how you want to do it, then it helps break it up into bite-sized chunks.
Okay.
But anyway, yep.
Mm-hmm. And then when you bring each of those, if you show the stage, just to understand. So what you're getting is one X form for each of the geometry of the buildings, and then one scope.
That's right.
One and only a scope that is the looks, and all the materials, are added to that scope, right?
Exactly.
So through the composition, right, each layer that you drop in there is coming with a geom, with an X form that contains all the geometry.
That's
with the same folder that is a looks folder. And through the magic of layer composition, all the materials from all the buildings will end up in the same scope in the stage, right?
That's right. Well said. Okay. Well said. And this is why I don't want to bring in a payload, right? Because a payload is going to contain its own looks folder. And when when this goes traversing the stage, it's going to be world, name of the payload, and then looks, versus just being flat on the stage under world. So that's bad. We don't want that. Okay. So to be honest, I just grabbed all of the buildings. I dragged them into the layers. I waited a minute. It compiled, and then simply on my root layer, I just said flatten sublayers, which is going to bake all of the layers into the root stage. And so now all the data is living on this stage, and I went through and I just deleted the geometry, and that leaves me with my world looks with all the materials. And because for some reason, either I didn't set it up right, or, well, okay, the materials that exported weren't 100% right. And part of that was they weren't properly mapped to the material from the Kipash data set. Could have been the FBX translation that didn't do it either. I'm not blaming them or anybody else. But the great part is now I can manage all my materials from this single repository. And if I need to make updates, I update this material. And so any maps that are missing or anything I need to add, I'm going to add here. And Alberto is going to show you later how that is going to control all of the materials on the objects, all the way up the stack. Yeah.
And also what I wanted to say is, yes, this is a manual way to do it. We're definitely working, you and I, on how to automate that, right? So then you can gather all the materials from this scene in one step.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
then you save it as one USD.
Right.
This is very important because, if we're not doing this, right, what we will end up is having one USD per building, and each USD loading its own materials 40 times because we have 40 buildings. We don't want that. We want one material library all in one USD, and then we will be using the magic of layers also to load it in all these buildings later in USD. And as you said, this has two advantages, right? You load it only once, and second, what you're saying, Dave, is that if you need to tweak one of the materials, I think the use case that you were bringing is the windows, right? You want to, play with opacity, bring in an MDL material that is, represents better the glass. You just do it there once, and then all your buildings magically will use that material because it's in a library.
Precisely that. Yep. And not just that, but some maps are missing. Like there's some opacity maps for some of the decals that are missing from the from 3ds Max. So I can add those in Create, and I only have to do it once, and then we're in business. So sort of the next step is I run a script on that big stage that takes each group and it saves it as its own max file. So I'm separating out now all the buildings into their own individual max files, which is going to make working with Omniverse a lot easier, because I'm going to be sending a very small amount of data. But in order to make that even smaller and faster, what I want to do is I want to disconnect all of the textures from the materials. So now I can only focus on the geometry, and the surfacing people can only focus on the materials. Whoa, that was loud. And right, and so that's what this stage is here. Well, let me just pop that. That's what that is here, but I'll show you how I just disconnect the material. So I have disconnect the textures. And let me just repeat that. I disconnect the textures, but I keep the materials because we need to keep that material binding, right? The material binding is the key here. And so then when we export the mesh from 3ds Max again into Omniverse, it's going to maintain that material binding and just say, hey, where's the material? Oh, it's this master material. And with a layer over, it's just going to propagate the material as it should, as we expect it to. So I have a script over here I just run real quick, zip, and it just removes all the textures. And now I'm in a perfect state where I still have my material bindings. There's no textures that I have to worry about pushing back and forth to Max back and forth to Omniverse every time, and we're in business.
Yeah, all right. And we're doing this because we already have the library exported, right? So we don't need to export again, 40 times all those textures. And that is very lightweight, and that will allow us to push this export directly into Nucleus, right? Because that is a huge component of this workflow.
Exactly.
The reality is that, we're working together, we're collaborating. Dave is in Florida, I'm in Madrid. So we need, we need a place to share our data. And that's
Absolutely.
Nucleus.
Absolutely.
And that is really, really amazing. No Dropbox, no things like that. No, we have Nucleus, works, natively in this whole ecosystem. And that is it's kind of our GitHub, is the place where we save our 3D data, right? Our USD data. It's version control. It updates really, really fast. And seriously, it's really, we're taking it for granted here when we work.
Yeah, I know. It's just a given. It's just a given for us. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, for collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Really, really and it's all part of that connected environment, right? We're just connected. You open up a thing, it's the last thing that I pushed, right? It's not like you have to call me and say, hey, is this the latest file? Or you're checking dates on files or whatever. You just know that whatever's there, that's the latest. And if I need to push one, I'll push it again, and you'll open it, and it'll be the latest. So, okay, so this is where we sort of landed with that. Okay, and then let me say again too that I'm breaking this down into chunks, right? I could just run a script that goes and it does the whole thing, but got to break it down into chunks to what the script is doing and why it's doing it. So, so this is where we are now. So now I have my individual building, and it's its own max file. I have the textures removed. So now when I push this, it's only going to be pushing the geometry with the material bindings. And another thing I did that's important to note is that I had to add another parent to this called geom. And what geom is how Alberto's script keys off of what it needs to do. So that was another important part of the script, is that creating another parent and then parenting the existing group to that, and that's where we are here.
I think the importance there is we're removing the specific name of the building, right? Remember, these buildings are going to be part of one asset, the same asset. So they need to have the same structure in USD, because they're going to live in the same USD stage, right? So for that, we're removing anything that is kind of specific, because although they don't know, they're going to become the same building, the same asset.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's
exactly.
that makes us sure that we have always world as a root. Then we're going to have a locator for the geometry called geom for all the buildings, right? And then we will have the look scope with the materials. And you will see that organizes your scene in a very structured way that helps you quickly access your methods, access your looks, and also encapsulate it, right? When you want to see it, you just collapse those X forms and scopes, and you just see your beautiful building there.
Beautiful. Okay, so from here now, what I want to do is I want to do any geometry modification that I need to do, which is none right now. But then what I want to do is I want to make sure that I push this to Nucleus, and I want to do that automatic. What I could do is I could say Omniverse, export all, and then go through here and connect to the server, and then set all the settings that I want to do. Or I could just run this script that will do that for me, and then it's also going to create a proxy version of the model, and it's going to export that for me too. And I simply, okay, this is sloppy. Okay, I get it. It's sloppy. There's no UI, but that's what rapid iteration does. So I specify if I'm gonna, and this is cool, because what this script will do is I tell it whether I want to loop through an entire directory and export all the files from the directory, whether I want to do that from each layer. I want each layer to go out as a USD file, a selection, or then just the file itself, just whatever's in the file, send it, no matter how it's structured. And that's what I set up here, is those settings, like do the proxy. I want a proxy. And yeah, anyway, stuff like that. So I set all the settings there, and then this is the code that runs it. So I'm going to run that now, and we'll just cross our fingers and see what happens. E, that you can see it's kicking off down there, but I'm just going to, maybe I'll beat it. Where is it? Where does it get there? Positive staging. 3ds Max, buildings, record. Find it. Record store. Okay. So, yeah. So we're going to see these update here. So it's 219 right now. You'll see when that gets to its point there, that I think it has to do both. So it exports, first it exports the high resolution mesh, then it runs a Pro Optimizer script on it and optimizes it down, and then it exports that as the proxy, and that takes I don't know, a minute, maybe less. But it saves me all the clicks from having to do that manually, which is in aggregate times the number of buildings we have is a lot of hours worth of work.
Yeah, and as we've been showing, you can do that manually, right? Through opening each of them, exporting it. But yeah, you can do that through a script in Studio Max. And we were talking while we were building this pipeline that we could potentially give it another iteration and maybe doing some of those parts also directly in USD. At the end of the day, it's up to us. The good thing is we were combining here our talents. They say, look, I can take care of the, breaking it down, moving the textures here in Studio Max. Okay, then I go and do only the variants on
Precisely.
USD.
Yeah,
that is a good thing about those connections, right? You can take the best from all the worlds.
Exactly, and you're never blocked. That's what I love about it. You're never blocked because it's a connected environment. If one tool doesn't do it, you can connect another tool into it that does the thing you need it to do and use that. So that's done now. I'm going to click refresh, and you can see both of these stages have been updated to 2219. And if I open them and I click F, there's the geom. That's the high resolution version, and then the proxy. It's a low resolution version. And if you've been watching the other streams, the proxy was just a bunch of bounding boxes, and it looked really terrible. But because I'm running the Pro Optimizer on it, you can see that the difference in file size is 14 megabytes down to 2 megabytes. So that's cool. And then that, for my part, is done. That's all I need to do, and I can have full confidence that because of the way we structured the folder system and the project and Alberto's script magic, he's going to run that and create variants from all of the buildings I've just exported. So, Alberto, why don't you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, before you do that, Edmar is here.
Hello, gentlemen.
Cool.
Edmar, welcome.
I've been hanging out watching the magic begin.
Okay.
On this new multi-continent episode you guys are working on. So thank you. I've been hanging out in the backstage room.
Yes. All of this happening on Nucleus Cloud Server, by the way. So we're collaborating globally on the same project at the same time. And like Alberto said, we just take it for granted that because we just do it all the time, but it's really pretty amazing.
It's very cool.
And you can see here, right? I mean, I got that same scene open, and I'm in Nucleus. Dave exported it, and here it is. Do you want to fetch it? Yes, please. And then here it is, the new one. The other thing I love is the checkpoints. Version control, guys, version control. I don't know how many times while I was building, what I'm going to show you right now, I have to iterate, and I was overwriting, my variants, and I had to go and then to the previous version, and I could go here and restore the checkpoint, and voila, right? And yeah, that's really, really cool.
Okay.
So let's get into
Alberto.
Yes.
Let me expand on that just for a second. You could also drag the checkpoints into the stage, so you could see every iteration this was at a save, and then you could create variants of those checkpoints and iterate through those in the variants. Like, it's insane inception magic, brought to you by Omniverse and Nucleus. So were you going to say something, Edmar?
I'm just laughing, but it's true. Yeah, it's true. I'm wondering that. So, when you have two people working, I could see how helpful this would be. How do you guys would you communicate so you're not bumping heads too much? Would you normally try to do this live like you're doing today? Or do you guys normally as a workflow kind of communicate behind the scenes whenever you're might be undoing somebody else's work?
Sure. So that's really determined by the pipeline, right? Like, if I'm the buildings guy, then I'm just working on the buildings, and I know that I'm just exporting to my buildings and nobody else is working in there. But in another stage, someone might be using my buildings, so they'll see my update when it comes in. But we rarely would ever be working. We'd never be working on top of each other because of the pipeline.
Got you. Makes sense.
No, but it's true that it's been a mixture. For example, so when we need to work, when we were deciding how we're going to build a variant, we will be online, right? And we will be taking advantage of Nucleus, me changing things with the variant, and then Dave, so Dave could, open it. Yes, I like it how it works. When we were working on the export, for example, Dave will be doing the export in your daytime in Florida, and I will be waking up and then working on creating the variants on my side. So it's been a combination of both. The awesome thing is that we're working all on the same repository. And that's what I want to show you here, right? Is the same repository working in this repository staging, right? Where we've been iterating all these variants. All the 3D Studio Max exports goes to this folder, okay? So this is what they were saying. We never, step each other on our different USDs. And we want always that, right? This, for me, the 3D Studio Max is the raw export. You don't want to touch that. That is sacred, and that is what they've said. Because why? Because this is coming from the source, right? You're authoring your buildings in 3D Studio Max. They come here, you don't touch it. They should be, in my opinion, read-only, right? And then we start building our assets for our little project right here under the assets, right? So we go to props, we create our buildings, right? And then what we're doing is we're going to start building our assets for each of these buildings in each of these folders, right? I'm going to show you what is the structure that we're making to make sure that we can generate the outcome. That I'm gonna just remind everyone what is the outcome, right? The outcome is to be able to come to this asset building and be able to generate this USD that is a variance of variants, right? We have here all the buildings that we can choose from the variant here, okay? And then we can choose if we want the render view or the proxy, right? It depends, sometimes you wanna, you need to work on a low poly environment to make big decisions, sometimes not. So that's what we want. We wanna make sure that we can create these beautiful assets where all those things are contained, okay? And so going back, what we're gonna see is how we've been doing, how we build it, okay? So we need to go step by step. So the first thing is we need to create the model set variant, okay? So to do that, if we continue working on the, which one you were working? On the record store, right? Mm-hmm. So let's work on the record store, okay? So what we're doing here is we're creating two folders, okay? The proxy and the render. And if we open the proxy, it's super simple. It's just, we go to F, we are referencing as a payload the scene in Max, right? So if I come here and go to properties, you can see that what we're doing here, okay? I click here, will bring me to what I'm referencing, is I'm going to the 3D Studio Max buildings record store proxy, okay? That's the only thing I'm doing, okay? Because we don't want to be destructive. We don't want that building over there is read-only, okay? What we want is bringing it here in case we need to do anything or add anything for our assets in our project on top of what is being exported in 3D Studio Max. In this case, we don't do anything. We just payload it. Why we payload it is because even though this building, because it's 2 megabytes, it's not a lot, right? But anything that is, could be ended up adding a lot of data into our scene, we want to payload it because that way we can decide if we want to load it or not with this beautiful checkbox, right? So that will help us to, balance our load, right, in our scene. Okay, so if I go back to my main layer, okay, we go back to our scene here. So that's what I told you. The first thing, we create this proxy. And the important thing is that this is only a reference. I'm going to open it here on this side, right? I think it's very important, even though I know that a lot of artists don't like to look into USD, but sometimes it's really good to open a USD in text mode to see that there is no data here. The only thing that we have is a payload, right? It's the world. Then we have a payload to the scene, right, to the USD that is being exported in our 3D Studio Max exporting area. That's it, plain. The only thing we're doing is reference that. Okay, with this, we have one part of our variant, okay? The other part of our variant is going to be the render. So I'm going to show you here what is the structure of this render, okay? It's very simple, okay? It's two things that we have to do to make this work. The first thing is we create a reference here. Sorry, it's a payload, okay, to the exported geometry with high polys, right? And as you see here, if I click here, it will reference the building from the 3D Studio Max building record store. And this one is the, high poly, the 40 megabytes. And again, we bring it as a payload, okay? What is the other thing we need to fix? On this one, we have materials. And remember that we wanted to use the material library, okay? So what we're doing here is, because our building already come with the materials without textures, okay? What we want to do is to overwrite those materials. So we go to our material library that we save here in building looks, okay? Where is the building looks? Oh, sorry, I need to go back to my asset area, okay? And in the asset area, you will see here our building looks. This building looks is our library, okay? And if I open it here, no, let's not drop it there. I'm gonna open it here. What you're seeing here is all the materials. This is the thing that Dave exported. The only thing we've changed is we edited this, okay? And we make them overs. And if you don't know about a USD, when you set something as an over instead of the definition of primitive, what we're doing is we're overwriting or overreading whatever is in the scene, okay? And that's exactly what we want. We want to say, I don't know what materials you bring in from 3D Studio Max. I want you to use the material library that we've curated, okay? And to do that, and I'm going to back to the building we were working, okay, the record store. In the render scene, we are dragging and dropping that looks library here as a layer. And if we do that, okay, what you're going to see is that our materials are nice there. If I mute that layer, you see the materials that came from the export. So we're overwriting this, and because we're dropping here the layer is the same one, we're reusing all these materials. So if Dave want to change something, or you just need to go to that looks, change the material, and automatically all our render geometries for each of the buildings will be updated. Okay, so proxy reference directly to what is being exported from 3D Studio Max. Render, we reference directly what is being exported from 3D Studio Max for high poly, and we layer an over of all the materials from our material library. That's it. The next thing that we need to do is we need to create a variant that will allow us to choose between these two geometries and looks. And this is the one that we built here on top. Okay, so for each of our assets, we have this USD, okay? That is just the variant, right? So if I press F here, you will see here that this, the world will contain a variant. We can choose between the proxy, and we can choose between the render. And if I open this scene, is extremely simple. Okay, is the world export. Then here we define the model set variant, and you see we have here the two variants, the proxy and the render, and it's a reference. And I think this is good. We want our variants to be very clean. We don't want to add here all the load. And as you see, we put here as payload, so we also can manage the load if we don't want to bring this into our scene if needed. Okay, so that's the first step. And imagine we need to do this for all these buildings.
Times all the kit bashes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is a lot of work. And that's why, you know, what we've been doing is working on this variant extension. Okay, so altogether, what this variant does is pretty much, this extension does, it's pretty much what, how many lines of code? It is 200 lines of code, okay? Where we do everything that I told you, you know, step by step in code, okay?
And how did you develop that? Which environment did you use to develop that code?
Yeah, so I was using code, right? So, and that is
Omniverse code.
Yeah, Omniverse code,
Yeah.
exactly. Omniverse code, right? then we will talk about that in another stream. But that is the it's a very similar environment like Create, right? But it has a couple of tweaks to allow developers to debug and make it easier to write code and get all the information about the libraries you need to use to build this. The other thing that I'm going to tell you that is really cool is you also have the functions to work directly in Nucleus. Guys, everything that I'm doing here, I'm doing it in this beautiful place in the cloud, right? Or whatever I do, I automatically upload it. And then if Dave wake up, in the morning, the next day, we'll have all these things there. And that's really, really, really cool. I can do it in my local, hard drive. But, with the API that we have here, we can work in this collaborative space natively, right? So it takes some time because of that, because I'm creating folders in the cloud, I'm creating all these, USDs, right? But that's being automated. And finally, what it does here, so if I go here, the only things that I need, as an entry point, and we will improve this, okay? There is no GUI here. I know, guys, if I click here, it will iterate. But the next stage is going to be creating a GUI so you can provide me with a path where you have the exports from 3D Studio Max or whatever software. So you give me this building's URL, okay? If you give me where you want to put it in your assets, which is this prop path, okay? Then you tell me where is your material over path, and then you tell me what do you want, how you want to name this building variant. This script will make the magic happen, okay? And then after exporting, and if we go to each of these buildings, you will see the same structure, right? I can open the diner variant, and this is good. You see, it's downloading it from Nucleus. Boom, here it is. I change to render and change that to proxy, and it will do the magic, okay?
And Alberto, I can tell you, as the guy who had to hand assemble all of those variants for the previous iteration of this, that I was hating that part. I was like, oh my God. And the brain work involved in doing that, going through, moving things, changing names, editing USD files to point to the right files, and it was just a nightmare. And this is going to open up scalability massive and make this whole process a lot easier. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and this is this is the cool thing about this whole ecosystem, right? Yeah, you can do it manually. This is the playground, right? How many times we've been iterating this manually here? Okay, let's create the variant. We don't want it that way. But then when you get the recipe, boom, you got the API to automate it. Here it is, ready. And as he said, after that, so I don't want to go through the code. So it iterates through all the props in the prop folder. It, creates the folders, create everything. And at the end, it just creates this asset variant. Okay.
Exactly.
And that is exactly, the one that we're going to load here, which is the final asset where we're going to populate our scene, right? With all those buildings.
Okay.
And all those things. Okay.
So I have an unrehearsed challenge for you.
Ooh,
just to put our money where our mouth is. Why don't I just make a small update to the record store, and we'll see if it comes into your variant list, like you say.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen now.
Go for it.
I love it. I love the challenge. All right. So I'm just going to do something real basic here. So there's a couple ways I could do this, and why don't you guys just tell me which way you'd like me to do it? I could do it in a live sync where I update the building in live sync, and then we can see it updating in Create. That demo's been done 100 times. Or I could just update it here and then run my script again and have it push out. And I like that idea better, to be honest with you. So maybe we won't give you the choice, but if people are like, do it live, then I'll do it live. Okay, but I'll just start going. So I'm just going to, what I want here is for our shot, the record store is a little bit too subtle. I want a big sign on it. And so that sign is actually going to be a record on the top here. Oh, not a Taurus, you donkey, as Marco would say. So I want a big record. Alberto is a Python magician. You don't know how long. Whoop, come on, Tyner. Come on, Tyner, focus. You know how long I have wanted to work with someone who I could just say, hey, man, I need a tool. And they're like, boom, here's a tool. Yes, thank you. Okay, and Alberto is that guy. All right, so we have a big old record up here, and let's make it like nice and high res, and maybe segments of like 18. Oh, no, not height segments. Come on. 1 and 18. Maybe 2. Okay, so this is a nice high res record that's going to go above the store here. And I'd want to create some supports and things like that, but I'm not going to go through all that right now. So good. So now what I could do is I could just manually push it up to Nucleus, and then Alberto should see it. Or oh no, I also want to create. I probably want to create a material for it, except that is going to dump down into my. Yeah, okay, so that's something we'll have to figure out. But anyway, no, it should work. I don't know. I'm adding a material. The material store here is like obviously since we're doing it all manually, it's a little bit unautomated. But anyway,
because we need to update the material library. So I think it's better now to do the geometry only.
I agree. Okay, so that's fine. So then I'm going to come back here. I'm going to say, okay, I have my record. That's cool, and I'm just going to go ahead and export to USD layers and make sure I just did this, but paranoia makes me look through all of it again. Okay, good. And we're going to export it. And then it's going to go through its thing. And Alberto, I'm going to pop it over to you on your end.
Okay, so I need to wait until the new version comes up, right?
Yep, and I'll tell you when that is. 73%.
Okay.
80%. 95, and then it's going to have to go through and do the proxy. So you'll have to. That'll just take another minute. Okay. Oh, it's running the Pro Optimizer now. So the render one is up.
Yeah, and I think what we want to show here that it was very important for us, right, in this pipeline is we don't want to lose the reference to the source, right? So of course we want to get the goodies from working with USD, working with the variants, setting this up, put it in our scene. But if for whatever reason, okay, we got some feedback from the director and say, oh, that record store is lovely, but what if we can add this and this and that? Mm-hmm. Then,
oh, hey, look.
Yeah, I got the fetch. It's here. It is here. So I can actually fetch it. At least the geom is up.
Yeah, they're both up.
Ooh, there you are.
Hey, look at that record.
See the record. That record is there. Okay, and then if I open the proxy and I press F, that record is there. So you see, this is the magic.
And by the way, right? Let's just remind everybody, you are in Spain.
Yes.
You are in Spain. I'm in Florida.
Yeah.
And that just happened in a matter of seconds.
You updated it, and here it is, right? And then there is no magic. There is magic. I mean, I'm don't have anything in my sleeves, right? Okay, so we're gonna get into the first. We're gonna go into our assets, right? Into our props, to our buildings, into our liquor store, right? To make sure that and then we're gonna open this variant. Okay.
The liquor store
goes well. Oh no, liquor store.
The record store.
The record store. Sorry, my bad. Record store. Okay.
In Spain, do you buy liquor at the record store or
No,
records at the liquor store? Okay.
Not really. Okay. Look. I haven't done anything, right? Connection to the source is there, right? I want the proxy. Okay. If I want the proxy, there it is, the proxy, right? And then let's do the next, demonstration that we're connected to the source in all our assets here is if we open the variance of variants and we go to the record store. Okay, there it is, right? So you hear the proxy and then you see here the render. So if we bring this to our sequence as a payload, this will happen. Same thing, right? We will have an immediate update from the source.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
And that's the important thing, man, is that because I think from people who don't use USD looking at this from the outside, you're like, man, you are creating a bunch of files and a bunch of folders. And it seems extremely redundant what you're doing, but you can see how it's not, because what we need to make sure is that the data flows from DCC all the way up the stack to wherever it's eventually realized and rendered. And in setting it up this way, that data just flows right through the pipe all the way to where it's going, and we can make changes on the fly, and we don't have to worry about versions and looking up dates and file numbers and final A1 final, yes, use this one, and things like that. It eliminates all those things. So that's really exciting, man. Let's see. So we have 15 minutes. If there's, I see people in the chat talking about. Let's see. There's a imposter Edmar. That is this the real Edmar? Are you the real Edmar? Edmar?
I am.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm glad we didn't get the imposter Edmar. Okay.
I tried to post some links for people because this is part of a series and you're doing one next Friday, but for some reason your channel's not letting me post links. So maybe you have to adjust something next time. But anyway, if you go to our Discord server, I'm going to add the event for the continuation of this, or the next episode of this live stream series. It'll be next Friday, same time. So just people can add to the calendar easier. Awesome,
man. Awesome. So I think, let's see. And thank you very much. That would be super, super helpful.
Yes. And so I don't know if there are any questions there in the, what if we don't have hub spoke architecture?
Yeah. So hub being Nucleus, the spoke being the connector. Is that, I think that's what you mean?
Oh, okay, like the Nucleus thing. Well, that's a good one. I mean, well, you will need to use the existing ways to share stuff, right? You either have like a Dropbox or you send yourself all these documents. To be honest, it is difficult to. Well, it's not difficult. I'm just saying that you need to remember working with the existing tools, right? What we're showing here is how good it is to have these. In the cloud. I know that there are ways you can create your own Nucleus, right, locally. And I know there are ways not as performant as this one to be able to share your Nucleus server locally to someone that is, in another. I mean, you can throw it through internet. If you open your firewall, you get connection, right? So the Nucleus server that you have locally in your computer, you can give access to someone if you open the ports, right? That's one approach. Of course, you're not going to get the magic that happened here when Dave uploaded. 30 seconds later is here, but at least you can experience, all the features that you get with Nucleus, right? In your Nucleus local server, you can install it using your Omniverse launcher here. I have my local server and I have the remote server. So when I'm not working in this project, I work in my local server and I get all the same features but running locally, right? So I have my snapshots, I have my folders, I have
and you can use them. You can move them move files from localhost into other servers. You can connect other servers. So again, it's just a URL, right? So if we were using 4 or 5 different Nucleus servers, if we had our contractor server, contractor A, B, and C server, like we could just link their stages into our master stage, and then we would be seeing the content that they're pushing to their Nucleus server, so long as we have permission to view it. So it does scale, and it's a good question. I'm not sure. There, Aircraft had a good comment. Say use Omniverse Enterprise, for if you have hundreds of employees.
I mean, it's commercially available, right? I mean,
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I'm trying to follow this conversation. It's a great question.
But that's concurrent, right? That's simultaneous users. Most companies, there's not going to be everyone hitting the same scene at the same time, right? The same assets.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about the details about enterprise. I mean, if you're not going to have 30 people working in the same stage at the same time, they'll be working on different, stages that either sublayers or references in the stage, but nobody's hitting the same stage at the same time. And the resolution, that's StreamYard, man. It kills me, Edmar, literally.
I'm sorry.
I rewatched this and it.
We have a meeting with them. We have a meeting with them coming up. We can talk to them about it.
Yeah, we need to get out of the 80s and get into 1080p, and that'd be awesome. So we got to figure out a way to either that or like record it HD and republish it in HD or something.
Yeah, we could just bring Wendy in, I think, for some of these streams, and she could use the hardware setup we use for the Wednesday shows. She's got a nice Threadripper. The advantage of StreamYard, what Dave's using today for everybody, is just that it allows guests to come in really easy and to switch the screens around. It's that way Dave doesn't have to focus on all the usual stuff that Wendy has to do to make the stream look nice. StreamYard is kind of like, it works out of the box, but you are kind of limited right now for resolution.
The UI UX is amazing. I love it. It's just the resolution. If we could bump that up, that'd be great.
Yes. And it is true. I mean, the 25, what I read in the comment from Eric, right? The 25 simultaneous live session is, we're not talking about the live session here, right? We're just talking about, sharing our data, which is great. But it's true that the true power of Nucleus comes when we all come live, and that's something we're going to show in the next sessions. When we do the live reviews, right? So yeah.
So speaking of which, let me just cruise on over here to this. So after last week's stream, it was like, okay, man, like enough of the asset pipeline. We have to start focusing on animation and start developing out the animation pipeline. And then we realized, nope, we're not ready. We have to automate. We have to automate what we have. But in the meantime, I put together this little clip, just doing a test of kind of all the things. It's short, it's rough, and all the other excuses why it's not beautiful and great. But I'll just play that for you guys now. And there's no audio. Quick and go. Get it? Quick and go. Foreshadowing. But here comes our guys in the car. They're going, they're looking. And then, oh no, here comes the drone. And we got some real cool stuff planned for the destruction of the water tower. I have a Houdini guy who's going to be helping me with that, and we're going to be doing that workflow. Possibly even so Chris Horvath does a lot of our fluid sims here, and he's a mad genius, and like any movie you've watched with water, there's a decent chance that he's the guy behind that simulation of the water. But he said there's a possibility we could do, we might be able to get some fluid sim going on that. So that'd be super exciting. But yeah, so that's where we're at. And then, of course, the feet are hanging out, and Marco's on vacation, so we can't address that yet. But then I thought, how silly would it be if there was like a Flintstone car and they're like doing their little Flintstone feet to get the car going. It'd be wacky and silly, but I think it'd be really funny. So maybe that's a happy accident, and we'll do that. So yeah, so that's kind of where we are on that. And I think now that we have all of our assets and everything, the pipeline's automated, we can move into the animation now, which should be really fun. So yeah, cool. So let's see, any more comments here?
It's looking great.
Yeah, the feet are going through the car. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay, Eric's talking to Renan there, and that's cool. All right, so
Yep.
Alberto, next week, what are we going to do? We're going to work on the animation, get that squared away.
Yes, we're definitely going to start, because right now we've been working on a pipeline for static geometry and looks. The next step is starting to play with how we're going to deal with all the animation, right? That we're going to bring into that shot, see, and do a similar thing. How we assetize that, how we save it in a way that we can reuse it.
Multiple tools.
Yeah.
Be using Max and Maya. If I can coerce Christian Axon into working on the Houdini, we can show that. But either way, that's all coming down the pipe, and we're excited to build this out and show you all how we're doing it. And we'll definitely work on the resolution issue, whether we have to stream through Discord or whatever. We'll figure that out, because this is it's driving me nuts. So anyway, want to say thank you to all. Oh, so write up on the automation of the USD variant pipeline, mainly to understand the coding. Probably not, but there will be. Alberto, you haven't done a write up on that yet, right?
No, but I can. I mean, our plan is probably releasing these, open, right? I mean,
without the assets, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but again, the code extension, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even I can show the code just as a reference, right? So you can see what are the functions that we're using and the different components of the Omni APIs that we're using. Yes.
Cool, man. All right. Well, then until next week, y'all, thank you very much for your time. Hope it was time well spent. And Edmar, Alberto, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. Great to meet you, Alberto. Very cool.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Oh yeah,
too,
nice
Edmar, Alberto, Edmar.
I love to see a Python. I love to see Python developer making cool stuff. Very cool.
All right, awesome guys. Thanks.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.